We're back and talking about the Republican hopefuls who could be contenders in the presidential election for 2016. And so I want to take a look at the National Journal poll, which asked both Democrats and Republicans about their interest in some of these contenders. Might be a bit hard to see there, but I'll just tell you, Jeb Bush is leading both Democrats and Republicans in terms of who they think would be the strongest Republican presidential nominee. Nearly half of Democrats saying that he would be their pick. Marco Rubio is at 40% with Republicans. He's actually the strongest of the Republican picks. But then Chris Christie there, again, very, very popular among Democrats, maybe not quite so much among Republicans. Bobby Jindal, my governor, is coming in there. But the one I really love here is our friend Rand Paul, who comes in at 0% for both Democrats and Republicans in terms of thinking about the strength of his likely candidacy. So let's just walk through some of those folks. Let's start with Jeb Bush. Really? A third Bush? I mean, I'd like to hear this.
You know, but I also think that whether it's Jeb Bush or Chris Christie, this goes to the argument, Raul's argument about you can't just put someone of color up there and expect, the party or anyone else to just rally around. There has to be, the messaging. There has to be the platform, the policy. These folks like Jeb Bush, who is highly popular across urban centers, across suburban centers. I mean, they have an appeal to minorities, as does Chris Christie. So I think if you have the right messenger, you can still have that appeal without necessarily being a person of color, as long as you understand those issues.
And Jeb's interesting, right? He hasn't been actually in elected office for a while, but he's making his name with the kind of education reform stuff, which viewers know what I think about that. But he certainly is an interesting character. But I just keep thinking, won't the Bush last name be a liability in this case?
Maybe, but you know what? I have to say now, I don't agree with all of his policies, but I have to give him a lot of credit. He, for 2 years, he has been telling the Republican Party that they had to be more moderate, that they had to tone it down in immigration, that they had to really recalibrate, and nobody listened to him. He was like the lone wolf out there. And I also give him credit for, he is although, again, I don't agree with the policies, but he's been talking a lot about education and his reforms. He also likes, one of his pet topics is income inequality, which you don't often hear Republicans talking about. And those are things that will resonate with independent voters. And actually, I did see a poll recently in the Miami Herald that showed that Jeb Bush was actually more popular among Hispanics. Jeb Bush was more popular than Marco Rubio. So it goes to your point. If you have a great message and you have someone who connects with the electorate, it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. These are these
Jack Kemp-style Republicans that are of the thought of, Jack Kemp says, he was a bleeding heart conservative. And I like to consider I cut myself from that same type of cloth. And I think there is an appeal for that type of conservative going forward. I think it is what the party needs. The party has just got to decide that that's what it needs to commit to. And so you will find popularity with he and Chris Christie and others like that, because they rally around these policies that speak to the very heart of who we are as Americans, and where we can find common ground as Democrats and Republicans.
My governor, Bobby Jindal, is actively running for president right now, and he claims to be also like, let's get away from the party of stupid. But his policies are not the same sort of mid-range, softy, compassionate policies of a Jeb Bush. They're really much more hardline, particularly socially conservative.
You can also be conservative. People have to understand you can be conservative and you can be compassionate.
But he's not.
They're not mutually.
Right. But I mean, of course you can. Right. Of course you can. I think Jeb Bush is that way. But I'm just saying Bobby Jindal is not. It would be a different direction to go.
I think the rising electorate that we've been talking about the last few weeks of African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans. At the end of the day, when you go issue by issue and look at the Republican Party platform, most of those voters don't agree with the platform. So there's going to be a problem for all of these potential candidates to actually connect, not just face, in terms of their faces and issues of diversity, but also on the issues, on choice, on climate change, on immigration reform. Even though there's this shift on immigration reform, I don't think Latino voters are going to all of a sudden flock to the Republican Party.
Well, we didn't get to Mike Fleck, which I promise we're going to do as soon as we get back, because Mike Fleck is a state representative in Pennsylvania who just came out, making him the first out gay member of the Republican Party in Pennsylvania. But I'm interested in part because that to me represents more libertarian impulse in the Republican Party, one that again feels like it's been sort of overshadowed by social conservatism in the past couple of years. So when we come back, I do want to talk about exactly that, and also just that decision on Friday that had all of us in Nerdland at least shaking our heads in disbelief when we come back.